What's going on? Welcome back to my channel. Listen, man, today is day 8 of the Diddy trial, and we had some interesting witnesses today, man. One of them is Dr. Hughes. She's a therapist, and I remember her from the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard case, man. Johnny defense team, man, they tear her apart, like, for real. And also, we had Special Agent Gannon, who testimony was on yesterday, and they finished it up today about how he sees some stuff from Diddy home and stuff, baby oil and stuff like that. And we also have another guy, another Diddy's assistant, executive assistant, man, Capelin. That's interesting too, man, because he got an immunity, and I'm noticing a lot of these assistants and witnesses stuff, they getting immunities and stuff. And I'm like, if you didn't do anything wrong, like, why are you getting immunity? You know what I'm saying? So I'm thinking, like, okay, they must have did some dirt too. So now they got immunity; they can say anything they want on this case and just sploot out all type of stuff, and they won't get in trouble, which is crazy, man. But let's check some of the details out of the testimonies and stuff. And I also got a video on a news report about one of the male escorts who was on the stand yesterday, man, called The Punisher. Yeah, interesting. He got a book coming out and everything, and he said some interesting things in his news clip that I want y'all to listen to also. But let's get into some of the testimonies. Let's go. Yeah, so this is Special Agent Gannon, man. He was on the witness stand, and he was questioned about items seized from one of the master closets during a raid of Combs' Miami home last year. He described seizing a pair of red pump high heels and discovering cell phones and stuff inside a Balenciaga boot. Inside the closet was also a Gucci bag that contained white residue that tested positive for cocaine and ketamine. That bag also contained smaller bags of different colored pills, including some stamped with a Tesla symbol that tested positive for MDMA and Xanax. Wow. So that's some of the stuff right there. Also, there's some more stuff that they seized at that place also. Let me pull that up right quick. So that's some of the stuff, like, you know what I mean, right there. Like, those are the pumps and stuff right there that they seize. Oh, I don't know what that is right there. Some green apple. I don't know what else. There must be some drugs too. I don't know. Some more heels, some more dang going wow, some freaky rope junk going on. It's crazy. Then they got the extra glass, the baby oil. So much baby oil they found, man. It's crazy. So 2 pictures show sex toys, including multiple dildos sitting on a shelf in the cabinet. Numerous images display gun parts, ammunition, and handgun. One photo showed the parts of an AR-15 semi-automatic firearms that were found in the Bad Boy records found in his primary bedroom closet. And another picture displayed 45 caliber bullets for a 45 caliber gun. Wow, it's crazy, man. It's crazy. Look at that. Gosh. And you got to remember that Diddy and Cassie would like dress up and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Cassie would wear a wig. Diddy would have like some kind of a mask with his face kind of covering up. So I figured they play dress up. You know what I'm saying? Like some type of role play stuff they had going on. You know what I mean? But let's get back to the testimonies. So yeah. What else they found? Crystal rock-like substance and pills with the main ingredient of magic mushrooms were found in Combs' Miami home, the witness said. The crystal rock-like substance was discovered inside a wooden box marked Puffy, Gannon said. Investigators in the master bedroom also came upon a plastic bag of pills that will eventually test positive for the main ingredient of hallucinogenic mushrooms. And they've been taking all type of drugs, man. Xanax, cocaine, ecstasy pills, like, what is this? Wow, man. Like, this is like, I'm trying to count it, at least about 15, 20 baby oils, man. You gotta remember, Diddy like to see Cassie and the L-skirts all up, glistening. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's crazy. So it's 25 bottles of baby oil, 31 bottles of Astroglide lubricant, and a rubber duck in a closet in a hallway between. Why they got a rubber duck in there, man? What type of oh my goodness, man. Okay, we all saw that they found a gun and bullets. And Kid Cudi was supposed to testify today, but he didn't. So he's gonna testify tomorrow. So that's gonna be a very, very interesting testimony. You gotta remember, allegedly, a lot of people saying Diddy blew up Kid Cudi car because Kid Cudi and Cassie they dated for a small brief moment, I think a few months and stuff like that. And Diddy got jealous and he blew up Kid Cudi car, which is crazy. So Combs team suggests that the number of guns, including with those, so this is the defense now. Diddy's team, so they're cross-examining the guy. Combs team suggests that the number of guns, including those with serial numbers removed, found in his Miami home, are not as significant or as dangerous as they appear. On a cross-examination by the defense lawyer, Tenny Gorengas, if I'm saying his name right, Gannon agreed that many of the firearms were wrapped in tape, not loaded, and thus inoperable. Gannon also agreed with Gorengas that guns without serial numbers could still be linked to owners by fingerprints, DNA, hair, and fiber. So they're wrapped up, in a testimony with their agent, and now prosecutors have now called Don Hughes, a clinical and forensic psychologist, to the stand. Hughes is dressed in cream-colored suit, and you got to remember, like this lady, man, she was she was on the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard case, and I must say, man, a lot of stuff she's saying was, it's facts, but then again, it's like she was kind of leading on the juries, saying a lot of stuff that didn't really make some sense, and Johnny Depp defense team, man, they shred her apart. So Hughes is no stranger to high-profile trials. Combs' trial isn't the first time Don Hughes has played a role in the dramatic legal sagas at the nexus of celebrity and power in the post-Me Too era. In recent years, Hughes has taken a witness stand in other high-profile sexual misconduct trials that drew national attention. Because she was in the R. Kelly case, and she also was in the Johnny Depp in her case. I didn't know she was in the R. Kelly case. I didn't know that. So it says it's common for domestic violence victims to stay with abusers, psychologists said. So victims of domestic violence often stay with the abusers as they feel like there are no better options, Hughes said. These victims who stay in these toxic relationships tend to fall into three categories: because they feel trapped, still feel a bond to the abuser, and believe that the act of leaving the relationship is far too complex to achieve, the psychologist said. Hughes' testimony could be a key in prosecution efforts to fight the defense narrative that women such as Combs' former girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, could have left their 11 relationship. So she basically saying, like, it's hard. It was hard for Cassie to leave. You know what I mean? Because Diddy was a powerful guy. You know what I mean? Psychological, sexual, and emotional abuse and financial dependence are used to control victims, expert says. Domestic violence victims fall prey to psychological, sexual, and emotional abuse, as well as financial dependence, making it all the harder for them to fight back or cut themselves loose, Hughes said. Victims suffer from psychological abuse, walk on eggshells, and focus on how to stay safe in the moment rather than a big picture solution, such as exiting a toxic relationship, according to Hughes. Sexual abuse can bring shame and humiliation, which leads victims to worry about keeping this harm private, which again keeps them from seeking an ultimate end to a bad relationship, she said. The price of emotional abuse leads victims to simply believe they are not worthy of anything more, thus draining them of the energy or motivation to get help, she said. Hughes described financial dependence as very important, as it deprives the victim of the material resource needed to leave an abusive relationship. She said, if you don't have money, you are left with a feeling of where am I going to go? Wow. Wow. And just reading all that right there and hearing Cassie's testimony, you'll think like, damn, you know what? Like I said, Diddy's a powerful guy, rich guy, and got everything he wanted in life. And you being his girlfriend, you never have to work. You can get anything you want. Found his private jets, chef, hotels all over, go over to different states, countries, and stuff like that. So it's like, I'm not saying Cassie was broke, but then again, I kind of can see some of the abuse. We already seen the drug abuses, you know what I'm saying? We already seen that Diddy beat her up. She also loved Diddy throughout all this right here. She also continued to love Diddy and wanted to be with him, and she didn't want Diddy to be with anybody else. You know what I'm saying? So we got to remember that also, that Cassie didn't want Diddy to mess with no other woman. you know, and she also was jealous, also, you know what I'm saying, with Kim Porter before she died. Also, another one of Diddy girlfriends, Gina, also, you know. So, but I can definitely see some of the stuff right here that the doctor was saying. You know what I'm saying? Let's continue. Defensive mechanism for abuse victims is delayed disclosure. Psychologist says abuse victims will sometimes delay disclosure what they've been through, fearing fallout such as shame or not being believed, Hughes said. That's why abuse will likely first be disclosed to a very close friend or loved one who will be viewed by victims as the most trusting ear, according to her. And the trauma itself can impact a victim's memory, Hughes said. As compact veterans, child abuse victims, and others have shown a propensity for failing to recall exact details as stress narrows attention. Wow. That's and hearing all this right here, man, it's like it's very sad. You know what I mean? Because you do have a lot of people that feel this way and go through certain things in life. You know what I'm saying? Sexual child abuse, some combat veterans who've been in the army and stuff like that go through this also. PTSD. You know what I'm saying? So Cassie being beaten all those times, man, it can really affect, you know what I mean? Especially give a PTSD for real. You know what I mean? Okay, so they went on break. And this right here, man, this is Kaplan, man. He's George Kaplan. He's the executive former assistant of Diddy's, man. He got an immunity. So government witness George Kaplan, a former assistant of Combs, into court after Hughes wrapped up, saying he was there after receiving a subpoena. Early in the day, there were concerns over whether he plead the Fifth Amendment and not testify. Prosecutors offered to grant him immunity if he answered questions, but warned that this protection does not cover perjury. After Kaplan's attorney reviewed the legal document, the judges execute Kaplan's immunity, and Kaplan will testify later today. So he did kind of like testify or whatever. Okay, so Hughes is back on the stand. The forensic side of the Hughes returned to the witness stand to continue her testimony. The expert on trauma and abuse could be key to prosecutors who want to show how Combs allegedly victimized and controlled women, even if they didn't leave their toxic relationships with the music mogul. So that's her right on the stand. Psychologist agrees she hasn't done comprehensive evaluation of anyone in this trial. So the defense wants to minimize Hughes' impact by pointing out that she doesn't have detailed knowledge of this case and the allegations made against Combs. Hughes appeared to agree with Combs' defense that she doesn't have this level of intimate knowledge and hasn't done an evaluation of the alleged abusers and victims because the witness wasn't asked to do so. Earlier during the direct examination, prosecutors anticipated this line of questioning and asked Hughes why she hasn't interviewed the defendant or witness here. Hughes told the court she wasn't legally allowed to do so. So she basically like, the prosecutors got her on a stand, but she didn't interview Cassie or really know all the details of Cassie and Diddy relationship and everything that was going on in his whole case. But they got her on the stand. Psychologist confirms she doesn't evaluate sex offenders and is paid by prosecutors. The forensic psychologist testifying for the government has never before appeared for a criminal defendant, she said. Defense attorney John Batch. So now the defense of Diddy is cross-examining Dr. Hughes. The defense attorney Jonathan Batch asked Hughes if she's ever represented anyone accused of a sex crime. She said she has not. That's correct. I don't evaluate offenders, Hughes said. Batch also asked if she is making $600 an hour. Damn. $600 an hour? Woo. For her work with prosecutors, which she confirmed. Moments later, on the prosecutor's questionings, Hughes recalled that she had been hired once before by defense lawyers to evaluate a woman who shot her abusive husband. However, the psychologist said she didn't end up on no witness stand in that matter. Wow. Wow. That is crazy. Former said the Combs complaint was called to witness stand by government. Okay. So listen. So Dr. Hughes, man, her testimony today was compelling. You know what I mean? But then again, like I say, she was just on the stand. She didn't really evaluate Cassie. She didn't evaluate Diddy. She basically was just on the stand, basically just try to give her expertise on things. But then again, it's like you don't know everything about this case. You don't know everything about Cassie. You know what I'm saying? Or Diddy. So how can you really evaluate this whole thing? You know what I'm saying? So the prosecutors, I guess they try to do an angle of really just getting a psychological person on the stand and just persuade the juries, man. So that's interesting, man. That's very interesting. So now we have George Capelin, man, Diddy's assistant. Former assistant details difficulty of working for Combs. Say his job was repeatedly threatened. Capelin claims Combs regularly threatened to fire him, with the rapper saying he only wanted the best employees possible, sometimes in a motivational tone, sometimes in an angry tone. Combs also had a very exact demands that needed to be met when traveling, such as filling out a list of toiletries that needed to be packed for overnight, Kaplan said. Kaplan also required to unpack the toiletries and arrange them so they were all facing forward, which would regularly take 30 minutes, the witness said. Cleaning up baby oil and liquor bottles in hotel rooms among job duties. So he basically cleaned up after the freak offs didn't happen. Oh, wow, that's crazy. Kaplan testified that one of his duties was to clean up hotel rooms for Combs, saying the photos of checked out mess could be embarrassing and sold to tabloids. The former assistant said the rooms would often be littered with liquor bottles and baby oil at the Combs stayed in them. And on one occasion, he found white powder near the sink. The witness also said that packaging Combs' medicine bag was always a lengthy challenge, as various pills, including Advil, Tylenol, and ketamine, always needed to be included. Kaplan recalled once accepting a delivery of MDA for Combs in Miami. Wow. So he was basically like almost the same as David James yesterday, assistant, basically kind of doing almost the same thing. You know what I'm saying? The jury was excused for the day in the court room. So that was the end of it right there. Kaplan, he'll come back on the stand tomorrow, and he's going to be cross-examined by Diddy's team tomorrow also. Wow. Today was very interesting, man. Today was a very interesting case. You know what I'm saying? This case is still intriguing, you know, and I'm still like 50-50. You know what I'm saying? About this whole situation. Is Diddy guilty? Is he not guilty? Don't get me wrong. He's a horrible person. You know what I'm saying? He really a horrible person. After seeing all those pictures and stuff from Cassie, man, getting him beat up and stuff like that, man, it's very sad seeing that. So in the public eye, just from domestic violence, he's guilty. But then again, it's like that's basically not what's really he's being charged with. You know what I mean? So that's the only thing about that. He's not being charged with domestic violence, man. That's the only thing. But before we go, man, I do want to play a video about this guy, that male escort, the Punisher, and just hearing what he really had to say.
Next up on the stand, after Cassie's mom stepped down, a man who goes by the name, wait for it, the Punisher. The Punisher is an exotic dancer and former sex worker whose real name is Sheree Hayes. Mr. Hayes told the jury that he got his nickname playing basketball, but his photos, they seem to tell a different story for why he may be using that name today. Ooh, kind of safe for work, almost not safe for work. I wouldn't put it up at work, but that's the Punisher, y'all. Mr. Punisher testified that he was hired by Diddy and Cassie for 8 to 12 different times, things like episodes. And he was meant to create a sexy scene that would last for hours. He said that Diddy called all the shots in these episodes. He didn't call them freak-offs, but he described what we've heard as freak-offs. He never saw any cameras, he said. He didn't see any violence. And he said, although Cassie would sometimes wince or sigh at some of the sex directions that came from Diddy, he said it didn't seem as though Cassie was there against her will. Again, this is a prosecution.
And that's very telling also, because, you know, the prosecutors, they're trying to say that Cassie and other victims was coerced and doing things, really forced to do these sex acts and stuff like that and being paid. You know what I'm saying? But you hear a male escort, one of the escorts that was really having sex with Diddy, and well, not with Diddy, but he was there, you know what I'm saying, interacting with Diddy and having sex with Cassie. And hearing him say this right here, it's like, this is a prosecutor witness right here saying this. You know what I mean?
Witness. So that's kind of, you know, That's on the fence there. He does certainly corroborate the freak-offs and what happened in the freak-offs, but that whole business about, to him, he wasn't sure if Cassie was into it or not, but he did hear that she winced and that she sighed as Diddy gave a lot of those directions. By the way, the Punisher also said that he never saw Diddy take drugs, never saw that he seemed drunk or high, which is exactly what prosecutors are trying to show, that this was not just an out-of-control, party of an enlisted megastar, but instead was a clear-eyed criminal enterprise. And I mentioned it off the top of the show, so I'm happy now to introduce the man who spent the better part of today on the witness stand. Sheree, the Punisher Hayes, joins me now live. Mr. Hayes, it's really good of you to be here. Thank you so much for doing this. I can imagine you've had a hell of a day.
Definitely a challenging day today.
So tell me a little bit about it. Like, how was it? How'd you feel up there? Like, give me a summary and a description of what that day was like for you.
I do want to say that he do have a book coming out, and this is not the only news station he's on. So I don't want to say he's just an opportunist right now, but he do got a book coming out. I'm just throwing that out there. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's very nerve wracking. There's nothing you can do to really prepare yourself for that type of environment. Very tense scenario, very serious atmosphere, and I just kept a mind frame of from the time I've been contacted by investigators. It's just give my version of the truth, what I can remember to the best of my ability, and that's what I tried to do today.
So I know that you talked about this on the stand, but I want to just sort of flush it out with you a little, because we get court sketches. There's no cameras in court, so it's really good to have you in person. When you say that it was clear that Diddy was directing the sex scenes and the sex acts, because as you described, it started off as just a sexy scene, but it progressed into actual sex over the course of the freak-offs. What kind of direction did you get the sense? Like aggressive, mean, demanding, or just, hey, this is kinky, let's do this?
Not even as I described in the text. They were very subtle. Mr. Combs was always basically across the room, and it would be in a low tone, and it would just be suggestive. It was nothing aggressive, nothing that would create some sort of scenario that this was like unnatural between them. Obviously, a sexual scenario with a couple is not the norm, but it's something that I had heard about before. And there's some couples that get into this, and in hindsight, if there were no accusations, I would have saw it as completely natural.
Can you repeat that? You would have seen it as what?
If there was no accusations, like in hindsight, all this stuff is in hindsight. Like in the moment, I didn't see it as anything but a couple doing something risque, and Cassie as a partner trying to create a fantasy for who I believed was her husband, and for the majority of this.
So at one point in your testimony, I think you mentioned, and I was just reading transcript because, of course, there's no cameras. You mentioned that Sean Combs was slightly aggressive in his tone, and that Cassie would sigh or wince at some of his direction. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, I understand that you're getting it in parts. It was quite a long testimony. When the sighing and the wincing was associated with, some of the direction was very specific, and it could be one after the other in terms of move the candle to the left, move it a little more, move it a little more, and now move your body a little more, stuff like that. And it was kind of unnatural for a scenario where you're trying to create a sexual situation. So my understanding or my interpretation of it in the moment was frustration with the repeated directions.
So it felt to you when you were there like it was frustration, but it did not feel to you when you were there like she did not want to be in the situation she was in with you.
It did not.
The other question I have for you is, I think I read that this began in was it right, 2012, that the first time you were hired?
That's correct.
So that would seem fairly early on, perhaps in the freak-offs in their relationship. And it felt to me like in the beginning, You did not actually have any kind of sex with Cassie in front of Diddy in those hotel rooms. It was just performative, but that it graduated in the later freak-offs to sexual acts. Did it seem to you, now that you're hearing a lot more of the story, that this was the beginning of the whole freak-off adventure for them, that they were kind of figuring it out themselves as well, and that maybe it progressed a lot further and got a lot less appealing to Cassie, maybe later after you had moved on and weren't in the picture?
So I'm instructed to not necessarily follow any of the details. So I just really know what my interaction with was. And it was always like almost a start over scenario because, like I said in my testimony, it wasn't consistent. I would get called maybe once every 4 months, so long periods of time would go in between. So it would definitely be kind of like an odd situation, but not in a way where I can assess. There was some sort of progression that went on from the time we started to the time we ended. It was pretty consistent all the way through.
Well, may I commend you in following the orders of the court and not having consumed a lot of information about this before your testimony, because that would have been an easy question for you to answer had you known all the background, right, that we're all learning in court. So congratulations and good for you. You're a model witness, and I appreciate you doing that. That's true justice. I do want to press a little bit on this aspect of from the first freak-off until the last freak-off that you did. Did you sense that they were getting more practiced at it and that it was a lot more sexual right away? First, it was performative and just, a show, and then it became actual sex towards the end. Was there anything different between episode 1 and say episode, maybe maximum 12? That seems to be the max number that you performed with them. Did 12 seem a lot more, like it was a machine that was ready to go?
Actually, the opposite. It was very routine, like a very consistent routine. It always started the same, some sort of a scenario where we would be across from each other on couches that were covered with sheets. It always had to start with a baby oil with me rubbing it on myself, her doing the same, escalating to us rubbing each other, and then escalating into small sex acts leading into actual penetration. Is very methodical and pretty much the same. I can't say there was a different energy from.
So these are the charges right here that Diddy being charged with: racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, transportation to engage in prostitution. Now, racketeering, I don't see that yet because he's basically by himself. When you think of racketeering, you think a whole group of people, but I'm guessing they're trying to do, well, the assistants who help, they got immunity. So you can't really add them in there. I mean, you maybe can, I'm not sure. Somebody let me know in the chat if I'm wrong. Sex trafficking, maybe. I'm still not sure about that because some of the escorts came to certain cities that they was in, but I don't know if Diddy paid for their transportation to come there besides just paying for just the sex acts. I don't know about that. You know what I mean? Now, if he paid for the sex acts and their transportation to come there, then maybe that can definitely be sex trafficking. But I'm not 100% sure. You know what I mean?
Start to finish, it pretty much stayed the course of whatever the criteria was from the first time going forward. And the first time was actually the only time there was an actual sexual interaction. And it was offered, as I said in my testimony, but I declined.
So one of the other escorts who had done some of the same things in these freak-offs that you were hired for said that at one point, Sean Combs was very violent with Cassie and that he took her in the other room and that he heard slapping and beating, and that when they came out, Diddy wanted them to continue and finish strong. That was his words, apparently, allegedly finish strong, but that the male escort couldn't. He said, I had erectile dysfunction at that point because of what I'd gone through. And I know, like, you wrote a whole book called In Search of Freezer Meat about that, about erectile dysfunction and how difficult it can be. And I think you might have mentioned that it actually happened to you during one of your freak-offs with Diddy and Cassie, that you had the same kind of issue. Was it at all based on violence or aggression.
No, it was not. It was not based on violence and aggression. I think for me, it was there was no true, at times for me, I could not get into a place of intimate connection. There was always a discomfort with obviously a male partner just being present, period. And then, like I said, with the direction, the move to the left, the move to the right, to do this, to do that, in terms of.
So you gotta remember that Diddy would be like in the corner while Cassie and the male escort are having sex and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And Diddy would like give them the instructions to what to do. You know what I'm saying? And also while Diddy over there masturbating by watching them. Man, this whole situation, these freak offs, man, it is crazy.
Me maintaining like an erotic space of being turned on or whatever, it was difficult. So it was just more of, it felt like acting opposed to a actual natural sexual scenario.
Did you ever know another escort by the name of Jules in LA?
The truth of the matter is, I was in a naive state. My very first interaction, I was told it was, she went by Janet. I had no idea who they were. And she introduced herself as Janet and said this was her birthday and this was something special her and her husband was doing. So the majority of the time, actually the entire time, even when I found out who they were initially, I really believed I was the only guy they were involved with. I thought this was some.
But had you ever heard of had you ever heard of an escort named Jules?
I have not. I'm not in the male escort business. I'm actually a stripper that took a proposition, but is not somebody I would commingle with in terms of interactions.
And then last quick question, sir.
So he was a stripper turned male escort? Because I'm like, that's basically what they hired you for. You know what I'm saying? To entertain, but then again, it's like you end up having sex with Cassie. So it's like,
did they offer you? Did the feds offer you immunity at all at any step of the way as they were, prepping you to be a witness for this trial?
No, there was no talk of immunity of anything. From what I understood, I was not charged with any crime, or there was any issue where I would need immunity in regards to this matter.
Sheree Hayes, I can't thank you enough for being so forthcoming and candid and agreeing to talk to me on this program tonight. I really appreciate it. I also appreciate you walking into federal court and getting up on a witness stand and talking about stuff that's pretty uncomfortable. The justice system relies on witnesses being fair and truthful and doing what you did, no matter how hard it is. And it is real hard. So thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. I appreciate you having me, and thank you so much.
Can I ask you?
I mean, listen, like he's about to come out with a book. Of course, he's gonna come on TV, news station, and stuff like that, man, to really explain himself. You know what I mean? This was over some years ago, but so this is day 8, man. You know what I mean? And tomorrow it's gonna be Kid Cudi, a former rapper and also ex-boyfriend of Cassie. So that testimony is gonna be wild. And also they're gonna finish. I'm talking to the Caitlyn guy, the assistant, Diddy's assistant. So it's gonna be very interesting, man. And I can't wait. We got about 6-7 more weeks of this right here, man. And right now I'm still 50-50. I'm still 50-50 about this whole situation of is Diddy guilty, is he not guilty? But y'all let me know in the chat, man, what y'all think about trials so far. Let me know in the comments, man. Have a good one.